and we will get started. So again, today's topic is continuing on. We had done an earlier presentation about a month or two ago on just kind of the overall, just tools that are available, but nothing really super detailed into the capabilities of Autodesk Docs. So that's what we're going to try to get into here today. So again, brief introduction as presenters. Again, my name is Scott Burke. I'm the AC Cloud Solutions Program Manager here at IMAGINiT. So I've been with IMAGINiT almost 20 years now, a little bit over 20 years actually. And I'm just one of our key liaisons between Autodesk and our sales and technical staff around the Autodesk Construction Cloud products. And I'll have Shane introduce himself here.
Good morning, everybody. So like Scott said, my name is Shane Meyer. I am an applications expert here with IMAGINiT. I've been working on Autodesk Build specifically for about the last year, but I've been in the construction industry for pretty much my whole life, but I would say the last 10 years in particular. I've come from the industry side. I've been a project engineer and a BIM manager. And now I am here hoping to help all of you understand more about Autodesk Build and how we can make it more efficient for you.
All right, thank you. So again, just a brief session overview. So briefly, what is the Autodesk Construction Cloud? And I'm going to be focusing on Autodesk Docs in this session here. Viewing and sharing 2D and 3D file formats, managing and comparing versions, managing issues, markups, and reports, and putting documents through review processes and bridging files also with other projects, and followed by questions there. So briefly, the Autodesk Construction Cloud, of course, is a unified platform for AEC project delivery. And again, the Autodesk Construction Cloud is not a product. It is just the name of the overarching name for all of the Autodesk products that live in the cloud and are design and construction focused here. So Autodesk Docs forms the foundation for the document management side of things. And then we have BIM Collaborate, Autodesk Takeoff, Autodesk Build. Now, auto specs are all part of this unified environment right now. But as mentioned before, Autodesk Docs is the foundation tool. So if you went out and bought Build or Collaborate Pro, you get Docs with it. If you have an AEC collection, you already own and have access to Docs. Or if you don't have any, if you just have an AutoCAD license or a Revit license, you can certainly buy a yearly subscription to just Docs. So it's very affordable and very easy to access. So as mentioned before, Docs is document management, right? I don't really call it a document control system like Vault. It's a little bit different than that. It's more project focused. But again, it is about document control, document approvals, versions, permissions, who has access to what. It's first and foremost a collaboration tool more than anything else, and a project management tool all at the same time. So it is about document control and permissions and things like that, so you can control who accesses what. It's very secure that way. You have all your version history of every document you've ever had in the system here. There's document approval workflows and so on there. But I like to stay inside of products here instead of PowerPoint, so I'm going to jump right into the Autodesk Docs now. So when you log into the Autodesk Construction Cloud here, you're typically going to be brought to this page, unless you're a manager or you go right to an administration console. And this is just where you can search for your projects right here. All the projects that you'll have access to, you'll be able to go in there and do a search. And I can start searching, and it's going to start narrowing down my search here based, again, on the name that I put in there. You'll also have access to your home page over here. So this is your critical items, things that you personally need to pay attention to right away. So here are all the projects that I'm connected to, and you see I have 11 projects in that area, and if I click on that, it starts zooming into those areas where I have my projects, right? It's just breaking them out this way. So it's just showing you where your projects are geographically. I could even go in here and pick one of those projects and hover over that. And it's going to give me information about the project. I could quickly go to the docs portion of that project right from here. But the most important part of this page is this right here, assigned to me. So these are all the things that I need to pay attention to across all of my projects. Primarily in this case, issues are the things that come from issues and reviews will be tools that are included in Docs. So right here, I have, all types of issues assigned to me, 100 of which are overdue. I have some over here. If I click on that, these are issues that are assigned to me that are coming up in the next 7 days, or issues that are coming up beyond 7 days, and I have 17 issues assigned to me that just have no due date associated with them. But the important thing is I have overdue issues, and if I click on that, it'll give me an instant list of all the issues that are specifically assigned to me and that are overdue and their due dates and what project they're coming from. So this is your issue list across all projects. So hey, is there any project, I'm working on a dozen projects, are there any that I have some issues that I need to deal with right away? You'd be able to see that. You'd be able to see the issue here. You could click on that issue and it will take you directly to the issue directly in the project. And now I'm in the project right at that issue. And again, I want to go back to the home. I go over here to my module selector and I jump right back to the My Home page here. And now I'm back on my home. And I can go back to the projects page. And of course, I could do a search for the project that I want. I'll go into my big box food mart here and I'll select this, which takes me to the project. Now, depending on what licenses I have access to, when you go into the project, you can also jump to the right portions. Now, this project, I have access to all the tools. So I have Docs and BIM Collaborate Pro and Takeoff and AutoSpecs and Build. That's all in cost management, which is part of Build. Well, I just want to go to Docs, so I can click on that, and it'll just take me to the Docs portion of the project. And if that's all you have access to, that's all you need, of course. So the next part of Docs is, of course, the document management side of things. So you create a folder structure. The structure is up to you. It's like Windows Explorer. You create a folder structure that matches your company's workflows and project needs. This is something that can be thrown in a template so that when you create a project from the template, the folder structure is, of course, preset. The next thing as a manager is you'd be controlling permissions. So if I go into my design module here, and even though I'm using this with Collaborate Pro, I've created a folder for my architect. And I right click here and I can go to my permissions. Control who can access the folder. So I have a ton of managers in here. But down the bottom, I have an architect as a role. And I've given the architect the edit rights to this folder because that's where they're working. This is the space I've given them to work. So that's where they're going to work. If I go over to my civil team here, this is where my civil engineer might be working. And I've let my architect see what's in the folder. But that's it. He can view and download files, but he can't edit, can't mark things up. He's just a participant, a viewer, and that is it. And Matt right here, who's an administrator, is my civil engineer. If I went to my mechanical folder here, MEP, I have my consultants as a role. So my consultants have edit rights here if you're an MEP consultant. And so does anyone that works for this company. And I've given them also the edit rights to that folder so they can work in that environment. And you can see here, I have user-based permissions, which is someone's name, and I can give that person specific permissions. I have role-based permissions, which is your job function. Are you a project manager, an MEP consultant, an architect, an engineer, a BIM manager, IT, whatever your role is. Of course, I would go in there and assign that to people, and then I can control access that way. Or, hey, if you work for MEP Installers Incorporated, your company has this level of access to that folder. So your managers of your account will have an approved member list, and then from that approved member list, you can, of course, invite people into your projects here. Like I have Sam Smith here as my MEP and my structural engineer. I told him what company he's part of, and I've given him a role of, what is his role? He has two roles. He's a contractor and he's the structural engineer. And I've given him access to Autodesk Docs here. So that those are the modules he's permitted to use on this project. So again, folder structure is up to you, including subfolders and so on, as many as you basically need there. And the next important part of Docs here is that it's a universal file viewer. So I can view just about any file type out there, all the well-known commercially available files, right? So obviously AutoCAD is going to be a key one here, PDFs, Revit. I can look at MicroStation files, Inventor, SolidWorks, Plant 3D, Civil 3D, of course Revit. SketchUp files, format files. They're all viewable in this environment. Don't need any extra software. The viewer is built into the product. So if I go to one of the more common types of files that we would get into, of course, it would be AutoCAD, and I can open up the AutoCAD file. So now I'm in AutoCAD, and AutoCAD has layout tabs in it. So anyone who's an AutoCAD user will be familiar with model space here. And then this particular file has layout tabs in it. There's one layout tab that's a 30 by 42, and then 11 by 17 addendum layout tab right here. So that's how I'm just navigating the pages over here. Now, also AutoCAD, to be brutally honest, is ancient technology with a capital A. It's 40 years old. I was using AutoCAD in the late 80s. Okay, and the reason this color is because computers at the time couldn't display line weight. This was beyond their capability. In fact, they couldn't even display color originally. It was vector-based. So for an AutoCAD file, it's a little hard to see color on a white background. So down the bottom here, I can go in, go to Appearance, and we can go ahead and turn that to black and white. So for an AutoCAD viewing, this is a much more comfortable and familiar way to view an AutoCAD file, so we can actually really see it now. It's much easier, and I always do that when I'm viewing AutoCAD files. Now, another thing here that's nice, because this is not only just a viewer, I have some access to the data, right? So AutoCAD is not a lot of data, but there is block names, there's layers and things like that. So on the left side here are all the layers that are in this file. And any adjustments I make here are just for me and just while I'm in the file. It won't affect anyone else. So it's very safe to adjust anything. If you want to reset things, get out, come back in, right? Or there's other ways to do that. So for instance here, maybe for whatever reason, I just did not want to see the doors, right? So I go over here and I can turn the doors off. Now the door layer is off. Or let's reverse that. Let's isolate the door. Okay, and then because I've already isolated to just the doors here, and I see some markups which are part of the Docs environment, maybe I want to turn on the walls and the interior layer of the walls too. There. So now I'm just looking at just the walls and the doors. I just wanted to see the plan information. I didn't want any of the notes or any of the other data that was here just for whatever I'm doing at this point in time. And then I can right click and just show all the objects and turn everything back on to its original. Or if I get out of the file and get back in, I'd see everything. Another thing here too is I can pick these objects and I can get properties for them. So at least the block data, I have the name of the block right here and I know what layer it's on. It's on general merchandise right there, general merchandise, this is a retail establishment and so on. So I have access to that. I mean, I could pick just a line here and get properties of that and see that's on a wall. So if I needed to know, hey, what layer do I need to turn off these notes here if I don't want to see those, right? Again, I can go properties for that and find out that I want to turn off the A area identification, right? So I just want to turn off that A area identification and that would turn those things on or off like so. And I want to clear the text out. So again, this gives you a lot of power, very easy to view. The data is there, really great. So let's get out of the AutoCAD file. Oh, and also let's actually reopen that because there are 3 versions of this file I forgot to mention here, and here they are. Let's go to version 1. Now I'm in version 1 of the file. And I'm also warned that it's not current. And if I look at the sheets and views, there's only the A1 view in this model right here. If I go to the version 2 of the file, then version 2 actually has that addendum in it, and of course the A1 sheet right there, and so on. And out here, I can see the versions. I can even click here and hey, I could download version 1. I could download version 2. I could copy it to another folder in the system. So I could take version 2 and copy it elsewhere if I wanted to just keep it as an independent version 2. I have that ability. Lots of flexibility here. Moving on, if I go down to PDFs right here, and I'll open up a PDF. And remember my setting was to view white as a black background for CAD files. I need to go back in here, go to my personal settings and change my appearance back to white for PDFs and Revit, which is better for those formats. Now there's no layers here because it's just a PDF file which has very little information. But I do, of course, have all the sheets. I can quickly navigate to the sheets this way. I have my page tools over here to go to the different pages. So there's different ways, of course, you can navigate this. I have the same ability to view versions here, so I can go to version 1 of that file. And if I notice version 1 of this file only had 4 sheets, and then when I went to version 2, it goes down to 7 sheets, and when I went up to version 3, the most current one, then notice that there are actually 8 sheets in that. And also note that when I'm in the older versions, I get warned, hey, just be aware that this is not a current version of the file, right? And I get that little warning up there. But the key here is you always have access to all of this data. It's all at your fingertips, very quick and easy to get to. And another key feature here, and this is something that you can do with AutoCAD and PDF for 2D comparison, is up here, I do have my comparison tool. And then I can compare version 1 against version 3. And I want to compare page 1 against page 1. I could compare it against other pages in the document if I wanted to. I could do that. Or right here, just pick the different pages, but I want to compare the same pages. And I hit compare. And now I can see the differences here between these different models right there. And if I want to get out of the comparison, I can exit it down there. And again, I can go back in, anytime here to go to the comparison that I want there. So again, version 1 and version 3 here. And oops, sorry about that. Let's check one more thing here. There we go. And version 1 and 3. So when I look in here, I see version 3 is red, version 1 is blue. And now I can see where all the changes are. I'm not dependent upon someone telling me what changed, or they forgot to tell me that they added a door over here. But I'm alerted to it because there's a color change, so I know where it is. So any of these minor changes, someone deleted or moved something, whatever, I know where they are. I'm not dependent on anyone telling me that, or if they forgot to tell me that they moved something, I will know. Little minor things over here would be really hard to know that someone moved that fixture over a little bit. Now on the PC, what I also like here on the web browser is I have this tool to go in and go from the overlay mode, which I like to call the old light table mode, to the side-by-side mode. So now what it does is it places version 1 on the right, version 2 on the left, and I could take my slider here. So now we're looking at version 1 of the file, and as I move my slider across, I start seeing the changes in version 3. If I go up to the area up here, there's a lot more changes. And I can take my slider, and there's the original file. And as I move that across, I see the doors changed. We added an electrical closet there. We added a built-in unit here. We've changed the door here to be more ADA compliant because there was a problem there. So I see all the changes instantly. To me, that one feature alone is one of the most important features in here, is the ease of comparing versions and understanding how documents have changed. So really key here. Now, if I go down to Revit, and I'll open up a Revit file. So in Revit, which is a little different, the person in Revit will decide that if this drawing is put into the Autodesk Docs environment, that Revit person decides which views will be seen, including 3D and 2D. So the author of this file has designated when I go to views that they've given me one preset 3D view here, and here are the sheets. And the sheets A1 through A8, right? Same thing now. If I look at the older version of the file, so same file, this is the first iteration of it, same 3D view, but I notice here that only sheets 1, 3, 5, and 6 were initially published. And again, in version 2, we see here that sheets 1 through 7 were published. And then, of course, finally, back on the current version, I can see that there are actually 8 sheets now. And I have that history here. I mean, it tells me who uploaded it, what date it was uploaded, all that information is available to me here. Of course, in a 3D view, I can rotate. I can, of course, go in and use my section right here tool to section the file. In the X direction, I could take my widget here and move that over a little bit to the area that I want to see. And then I can zoom in on an area. And maybe I want to take this fixture here and I wanted information about it. And because this is Revit, there's all types of data here. So now when I go in, I have the name of the family, I have the company, I have the model number, I have its electrical requirements right here, 30 amps, 120 volts, material, it might be polished aluminum, red plastic, and so on. So there's all types of data now associated with this information, with this object right here. And just like with the PDF or the AutoCAD where I have access to layers, here it's by object type, model browser. So again, I could isolate specific things like all the generic models, or I can just pick the word generic model and isolate just those objects. So I can hide things individually or just isolate the things that have that particular terminology associated with them, which are just these fixtures right here. And of course, I can right click and show all the objects and restore everything kind of back to its normal view, including turning the section off when I do that. And I have different section modes. I could go down from the top down in the Z plane and grab the widget here and control, where I want that section to be taken from. Maybe I kind of want like this exploded plan view, right? So I have access to the properties and I can view it any way that I want. And again, I can go to the sheets. I have all that same access here, right? I can zoom in on something here. I can, once again, pick a family and get the properties for that. It's all available to me in plans, 3D views, whatever your preference is. Now, another thing that I like in a 2D view is that I have this tool down here where I can pick a point right here. Hey, if I was standing here and looking this way, what would I see? And it takes me directly to the 3D view, gives me some navigation instructions here. And now I can basically look around in my model right here. And of course, use my arrow keys to navigate. I can pick a project, an object there, all the properties are here, and so on. So all that data about that is there. Or I could look up and say, hey, can I just turn that ceiling off for whatever reason? And I can isolate that or hide the selected object because I wanted to see things above the ceiling, whatever I basically wanted to do. And then when I'm done, I can hit the back button to go back to the sheet. Then I'm going to go, in this case, I'm going to go back, well, actually right from here, I'm going to use the compare version, but in a Revit model. So this tool works really different when we're in a 3D model because of all the data that is here. So once again, I'll compare versions 1 and 3. In this case, though, I want to compare to 3D view, which will give me a much more holistic understanding of what has changed, not just isolated to what's in the plan. And I hit compare. And now I'm instantly presented with graphically all the changes, and I can isolate them now. So show me things that were just added. So everything in green here is new. The door was added, these walls were added, these pieces and the equipment thing, all those things are new. All right, show me things that were deleted. 6 items were deleted, and that's it. Okay, that unit right there was deleted, this and this were deleted, and that little piece of wall was deleted, and these 2 fixtures were deleted. All right. Show me everything that was simply modified. These are all things that were changed in some way. So now I can go in here and I can see all the objects that were just edited, basically, right? And if I pick this door right here, I can see that the door was moved 7'7" in the Y direction because it used to be here, and now it's over there. If I select the wall here, the wall used to be there and it was moved here. So it was moved 8 feet in the Y direction there. So that information about the wall, the changes, things like that, all of that is recorded in here. And of course, I can see everything. I can even take this and export this out as an Excel file, like so. And then I can open up my Excel file. And now I have a list here of all the changes between release 1 and 2. or 1 and 3 in this case. And here's all the objects. I even have the Revit ID number so that I could find the object in the Revit file to see what was changed, modified, added, modified, removed. All that information is kept and can be exported out as essentially a report. And then I can hit my back button just to get back into my viewing mode. So again, just really powerful tool here. So we have an ability to share our files, view the files any way that we need. The next thing I want to talk about are the issues, which, as I mentioned before, to me are the most important thing in the software. This is your action items. Issues is actually not really a good name for this because these are not problems always. They can be an issue, but I would say they're not always issues. In fact, that's probably the least thing that these are. Right? This is your, especially if you're using Autodesk Build, this is your safety management, this is your quality control tool, this is your punch list tool, this is your Q&A tool, this is your task management tool. All of those things are managed by this. This is your analysis tool because most of the analysis for the software comes from this. So an issue could be a task, it could be a punch list, it could be a question, it could be just go do a site inspection today. It can be a problem. It could be a safety issue, a quality control issue, all of those things. And you can always just create an issue right here. And you can even have issue templates. Hey, this is going to be a architectural code issue. So that means it will automatically go to Scott Burke. It's a building code issue. That's the title here. These are the watchers. The due date will be 7 days or from today, and it's a code compliance issue as a root cause. Well, what happens if I use my MEP template? Oh, well, MEP templates go to John Jones. That's due on April 2nd because I set it for 2 weeks, and this is a design deficiency, right? So you can preset things that way, or just select things as you go. Okay, give the issue a title, pick the type out of your company's predetermined list of issue types. Again, those could be punch lists and tasks and all those other things can all be, general task right there, a warranty issue, a work list, work to complete. So those aren't issues, right? Those are just things you need to do, action items, and so on. So you can create an issue right here and just be done with it, or more commonly, especially if this is something from a document. So I'm going to jump over here and I'm going to go back to my just general documents, and I'll go into one of my PDF plans here. And in the PDF plan, I have a drawing here where there's a problem, right? So right over here, this certainly an issue with this pharmacy in the corner here, if you can see that. There's no way in. Yeah, I guess there could be a lift up panel to get in here, but for egress code in reality, there should be other doors that get into this room, right? So again, I can go to the right here, get my issue. Maybe it's a design issue, and I can place that right here and as my issue marker. And I can say missing door. And it's an open issue. That's the status of it. And then I can come over here and description, please, add a door here. So I'm sending this to someone in my design team, right? I'm the manager. I'm going through. I see a problem. Please add a door here. And then I'm going to assign this to, I'm just going to say the architect as a role, and they'll figure out who will do this. Is there a location for this? Yes, I pre-set up locations here, and this is actually in the pharmacy. So I'll set that location, which allows for filtering later. And the placement is in this file. And what's the root cause of this problem? It's a design deficiency. We got to fix that. Or maybe it's just, someone forgot something, and you can create different types of things here if you need. Maybe it's a code compliance issue or documentation was incomplete, whatever you want to call that there, and it helps with analysis later. So now I have an issue here, and then I have the markup tools. And generally, markup are really to support issues. They should never put a markup on a plan without an issue because there's no way to track it. But with an issue, I can track that the markup is being seen. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to drag my line tool right there, line, and I'll draw a wall or draw my door, panel there. Hey, that's a little thick, so let's go ahead and we'll change that to 2 point. That looks better. Then I'll go over to my freehand tools here and I'll draw my little shaky door swing here. Oh, that's pretty good. Pretty happy with that one. And then I want to pick that one, and I'm going to edit the line weight of this one and say, hey, that one should actually be maybe 0.75. Yeah, it looks better. Good. All right, while I'm here, let's bubble this so people see the change, like so. I'll bubble that. Hey, that's a little thin too. Hey, let me adjust the line weight of that to 3. That looks better. And let me add a little text note right here. I'm just going to call out right there. And I'll say add door here. Looks pretty good, except the text is too large. I'll make it 10 point. And the line weight around this border is a little thick, so maybe I'll make that 2 point. That's better. And here I'll adjust this a little bit to where I'd like to see that. I could move my button and my arrow here around a little bit if I want to. All right, that's good. Now I need to make sure people can see the markup. So a key aspect here are all the markups in this drawing right here. These are personal markups. This is a note to myself at this point in time. So instead, I'm going to now go over here, use my crossing window, which is why this exists. I pick this all and I publish it. Now that becomes public knowledge. Anyone going into this file will see the change. So the person that this is assigned to goes out to the issue list here. They get an email indicating that they've been assigned an issue. They open the email, they hit the link. As soon as they hit that link, it takes them all the way into the product like this, takes them to the issue panel, and it highlights the issue. And here it is, issue 441. And down in the bottom, oh, placement. When we click on that, that will take me to the file or the sheet, if you're using Build, of where the issue is. And it will highlight it and take me down to it right there. There's my issue. Oh, there's the missing door. Okay, I'll need to fix this, right? So I will go into Revit, add the door, print the PDF from it, because that's the way we're working in this case, or right from Revit, because it could be in a Revit model that I'm doing this in, or an AutoCAD file for that matter. So these markups can be done in AutoCAD, in a Revit file. They can be done in a PDF file, right? So I've gone in here, I've fixed this, so I'm going to let the person know, hey, just be aware that I've completed this particular issue. By marking this as completed, the person who created the issue gets a notification that, hey, this is done. Cool. All right. And then they upload a new version, and they'll come in here and they'll add a comment and they'll go, okay, I added a new door and uploaded a new version. And I submit that. So I'm done. So I've uploaded, a new version here. So I come over there and I would, go into that file right here. I don't want to make sure I'm in the right one. There it is. Good. And then I will upload the new version. So I'm going to come in here and I just say, hey, I need to upload a file. And I go in and I upload the updated file, right? So I go in here, grab my updated file that I just printed, and I upload that. So it uploads the file, replaces it, and then it will start processing. And what basically happens, it takes a few minutes, and it will copy the markups and issues from this version here up to the new version of the file. So every time there's a new version of the file, markups and issues are persistent. They stay and they keep copying up. So it'll take, 15, 20, 30 seconds or so to roughly process this file, depending on how big it is. And then when I open it, it'll just let me know, oh, you're in the current version, but if it hasn't had time to copy the markups up yet, which it has not, when I open this, it'll just let me know, oh, just be aware that previous markups and calibrations are still updating. So that tells me that there could be some markups in this version. This is version 2, right? So after a few minutes, when you do finally open the file, then the markups will show, and you'll see them down there like so. So again, I'll just take this and mark that as completed again, because this is another file I just did for demo purposes here. So now that's done, right? And I would come in here, and as the manager and the creator of the issue, I see, oh, well, there's the door I was looking for. So I can mark the issue as closed. And then I can take these items here. I'm just going to use my crossing window, the markup, because the markup doesn't apply anymore, does it? The door is there, right? So I go in here, and I can delete the things that I don't want, because these markups, right? Just being careful about that. So those markups aren't relevant here because it's done. There is the door. The issue stays. It's always going to stay there. If I go to the version 1 of the file, the markup, of course, is still there because it's still relevant in version 1 because there was no door. But I also know by clicking on that, oh, this issue is closed though, they fixed it. Okay, oh, and I'm in the old version. Let's go to the new version. Now I'm in the new version. And now I see the door is there. So that is basically the workflow. You delete the markups when they're no longer relevant in the version where they've been resolved. And again, I have my list of issues here. I can filter this by anything that I want. You know, for instance, I want to get my punch list deficiency list, okay, punch list package, and show me everything that was in the drywall and paint package because I created some custom search parameters. And here they are. And then what I could do right now is export this as a report. I want a detailed report. It'll export this out. Any reports that I create will be down and stored in the reports area right here. So I can go into my issue detail report and download that. Open that up. And here is my punch list report. There's a list of all the issues. His issue, the exhaust fan is not working right there. Shows where the punch list was created. In this case, because I was using Autodesk Build, just be aware that the photo feature like this would not be available for Docs. I was able to add this in. I could put a file in that would then be accessible and downloadable. Then I could view the file that way. All right. So that's basically the issue flow and workflow here. And of course, these reports, once you create them, you can save them. And the key here is I could take this overdue MEP issue report that I've created, and I edited the template for this, and I said, hey, this is isolated to the MEP installers, overdue issues. And then I could take that report that I have here and I can schedule it. So maybe every Monday or every day of the week, I'm going to save the schedule and it's going to be sent to my MEP engineer. So every day, that MEP engineer will get a list of any issues that are overdue. If there are overdue issues, no overdue issues, he doesn't get a report. But now he's getting a timely report and reminder that, hey, your firm has overdue issues assigned to it, and so on. So that's what the reports will let you do here. So, I'm going to share the presentation here. I'm now going to go over to Shane, and he's just going to go over the reviews, the transmittals, and the bridge tool that is available, of course, in Autodesk Docs here. So there's other things that kind of allow you to do more project management things. All right, so Shane, it is now your show.
All right, are you guys able to see this?
Yes, I am. Yep.
All right, perfect. So to kind of add on to what Scott has been talking about this whole session here today, Autodesk Docs is all about creating that single source of truth and our central portion of data that we can all work on as we go through a project. So one way that we can also further that cause is by sending documents through a review process. This way, we know that the documents that we are currently using on our project have been passed through a couple of different levels, and the things that everybody are going to be using as they go forward are going to be kind of the latest and greatest, and the things that we know for sure are what we want to actually use on our project. So the first way that we're going to do that is going to go through this reviews module here. I'm going to start off in this one real quick because we can actually go through and initiate these directly from the files module themselves. So if I click on the three dots next to any different folder, I'm able to see that I have this submit for review section right here. Now in this case, this would take this entire folder, or if I were inside of this folder looking at any of these individual files, I could send those individual files for review as well. Instead, what I'm going to go ahead and do is hop into the reviews module over here on the left-hand side. So you can see we have quite a few reviews that have gone through on this particular project. We have the status listed over there on the left as to whether or not those reviews have actually been finished out. We have what round of reviews those have gone through, as well as the name and the workflow that we used. So I'll go through and show you how we designate these workflows, but we're able to create them so that for different types of files, you can have different workflows that go into place. So if you're sending shop drawings through for review, we can go ahead and create a shop drawing review workflow. That's going to help dedicate who is actually going to be responsible for doing that review. If I move down a little bit to this open one, you can see that Vince was one who initially started this review. He kicked it off, and currently it's going to be in Scott's court. So as these are going through their process, if there's something open, you're always going to be able to see who is responsible for the next step. It will also include the due date as well as the initiation date of the actual review process itself. So before we go ahead and actually start a review, I'm going to hop up into my settings module in the top right, and we'll be able to see some of our options here. Now, keep in mind that settings are going to be exclusive to project administrators and people with that access. So if you don't see that button, that's likely just because of your permissions across the platform. So you can see we have two different columns here. We have approval workflows and draft approval workflows. This column right here, the draft approvals, is just so that as you're going through and creating them, if you're not quite ready to make one of those active yet, you can save it and come back to work on it later. We currently have these 4 workflows here created on our project, but what we're going to go ahead and do is just create a new approval workflow for the sake of this webinar today. After clicking create approval workflow, I get this set of options here put in front of me, and really it's just asking how detailed I want my approval workflow to be. A one-step approval is simply an initiator passing these documents, these files, whatever it may be, off to a single source for review and approval on these items. You can see we can get pretty detailed here, and if I scroll all the way down to the bottom of the list, we can get to a 4-step group approval. Now, if you look at this picture here, that gives us a little bit of an explanation. So from the initiator, it's going to pass through 2 individual parties who are going to do their own individual reviews, and then we'll dedicate it to go to a group of people. So this could be, 3 different people that we want their input on. We can give them the ability to answer for each other so that nothing is getting held up in the process. And then once that group has done its step, it's going to pass through one final person for an actual approval or rejection on these files. I'm going to go ahead and for today, I'm just going to make us a quick little 1-step approval so that we can walk through and see what the process is going to look like. You can see we get a more detailed view here, and I'm going to go ahead and click next. I'm able to go through here and say what the actual name of this workflow is going to be. I could give this a brief description. So keep in mind, if we were going to be very specific as to the types of review workflows we're creating, we would create a description for this in terms of, all of our shop drawing reviews are going to use this workflow. Just kind of give it a little bit of a better explanation here. As we go down here, we're going to start figuring out what the actual steps of our review process is. We're able to select an initiator for these review workflows, but it doesn't have to just be one. We can go through and select multiple as we go through. We could select everybody on a project. We could do that by either the user, the role, or the company as well. I'm going to go ahead and double check and make sure that I myself can be a submitter for this one. Because I essentially am going to be the only steps in this. So now that we have that one figured out as to who can actually initiate these reviews, it's time for us to dedicate what this review workflow is going to be and who is responsible for the review. You can see based off of this, we just have the initiator into that final reviewer. So this is going to be the one person that we're really dependent on to actually go in and provide their input. Again, I am just going to go ahead and make this myself, but typically this would be whoever we wanted on the team. That could be another company, another role, or an individual user as well. Moving over to the right-hand side of this, we have our time allowed for this review process. This one is currently set to 3 days. I'm going to go ahead and leave that as we move forward, but you'll notice I also have the option to make it calendar days or work days. This is extremely useful because if you change it to work days, you send out a review on Friday, people aren't going to be upset that, their whole time period has been wasted and Monday is now the day it's due. 3 work days, they'll have until Wednesday to end up doing that. If my math is right, I don't really think it is, but we can at least have that option to separate those out. We're next able to say what we want our status answers to be once these go through the review process. So if it's approved, what do we want that to actually say? I have a few clients who they refuse to actually, use the word approved. It doesn't really work for what they have. So typically they have things like approved with comments included on theirs as well. So we can change these, and we can even add another status as well. At which point we select our value here. I'm going to say a rejected one here, and I'm going to say, please review and resubmit. I then get to associate an icon to this. So is it approved, rejected, or do you just need to go through and see comments? In this case, I think I'm going to go ahead and leave it with comments in that box, and we can go ahead and move this one forward. As we work through this review process, we want to make sure that the files we are reviewing are going to end up where we want them to end up. It's going to help us make sure that we're keeping organization throughout our platform, and that's what this box here is for. So once this action, or once this review has been completed, what do we want to have happen to these files? In which case, I'm going to go ahead and say copy approved files, and I'm going to go ahead and select a folder somewhere within my project. In this case, I'm going to save it here so that I know later on I can come back and remove it once we're done today. But typically you want that to be wherever your company is going to be storing these approved latest and greatest files so that you can all come back to them later on. We have a few other options here as well. Do we want the person initiating to be able to decide where it ends up? This will be a personal preference, but you may want to keep your own settings in place. I personally would like to include all published markups on my files, and I would like the approvers to be able to change whether or not those markups have been included. We also have the option here to update attributes. So what this means is that when this approval goes through and the file moves into another folder, there's an extra column included that's going to update attributes for this file. So any question that we have, due dates, has this been submitted, permitted, we can create those in our file structures as well. I'm going to go ahead and leave that one blank, and I'm also going to leave my workflow blank as well, or my notes blank as well. You can see in the top right hand side I have save as draft. That's where it would go into that other column, but I'm going to go ahead and just click save on this one for now. So now that I've gone through and I've created my review workflow, I can go back into my reviews module, and I'm going to go ahead and click create review. After I dive through this and I select my document that I'm going to actually review, let's do some PDF plans, and we'll go ahead and we'll use this structural one to pass this through. It's going to ask me to select my approval workflow. So again, if we had gone through, we now have a 50% design approved for construction. I'm going to go ahead and use that one that we just used, but this highlights how we can really be specific about what kind of review workflows we're making. I'm going to give this a name really quick, and I'm just going to go ahead and hit submit. Once this has been initiated, it's going to ask us if we want to actually notify the reviewer. I can go ahead and notify other project members as well and include a note as to what it is that we're looking at. I'm going to go ahead and skip this process because all it's going to do is send an email directly to myself. And then I can go and I can see that this one is currently open. Right now it is pending its final review. We're able to go back and look at the files that were included and all of the information about that, as well as double check the progress of this review process. I'll go ahead and start the review, at which point whoever is responsible for this review can open this file. They can make any markups that they need. Here we're just going to be able to see what it is. It's going to open it up for us and its location. I'm going to go ahead and jump back. I can go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and say, please review and resubmit. And I'm just going to go ahead and submit this review. It's going to include all the published markups that are currently on this file. We can notify members that this review has been completed, and I can go ahead and submit this one. So this review has now been completed. It is closed out, and whoever has been a part of this process will be notified that that review is good to go. Or in this case, they need to review and resubmit what this item was. Now, this process is extremely great. We now know that we are on our latest and greatest as we move forward here. But what's another way that we can actually tell people that we have done this review? And that's going to come through our Transmittals module. So we are able to click Transmit All right here, and that's going to include all of the files that are a part of this review process, or I'm able to hop into my transmittals module and create a transmittal here. Transmittals are an extremely straightforward process. They are essentially just a way of notifying exactly who you have on a project, or who you have on a project that a document has gone through completion. I'm going to go ahead and enter into the one that I just approved. Well, we're going to take this one that I used anyways, in the interest of us speeding up and getting through the rest of this for the rest of today. It's going to include the title. In this case, it took what my actual document name was. I'll go ahead and leave that for now so you don't all have to watch me fat finger my way through it. And then I'm going to select the recipients that I'm going to have from this review process. I'll go ahead and I'll choose Scott, I'll choose myself, Vince, maybe I want all of my architects, and then anybody from my company to actually also receive a notification. So I'm going to go ahead and click save. I'll say email me a copy of the notification. So this way I will still be informed when this is completed. And I'm going to go ahead and click create. So now with this transmittal, everybody that I have just selected has gotten a notification saying, hey, Shane Meyer went in there and transmitted this file directly to you. They'll be able to follow the link within that email and find directly this transmittal, this file, and be able to actually open it, view it, and download the zip file as well containing what this transmittal is. So in this case, our reviewed document has now been sent out and everybody has been made aware that we are up to speed on what we've got going on. Another way that we have to create that central source of data and information is the bridge function that we have within Build and Docs as well. Bridge is essentially the way to link two projects together so that they are sharing information. So if we have Big Box Food Mart A, let's say that's a construction project, and Big Box Food Mart B, which is a design project, we can go ahead and link those two together so that as we update them, they're updating each other and everybody is staying up to date with what's currently going on. So again, creating that single source of truth through the ACC. If I was going to bridge a new project, all I would have to do is click there and then type in an email address for an invitee. In this case, I'm going to go ahead, sticking with my own name, and I'm going to say send an invitation to bridge a project. At this point, what's going to happen is that I'm going to receive an email on my Outlook account. It's going to tell me that so-and-so has invited me to bridge projects together, and I'll be able to accept that bridge, at which point I will dedicate what information is going to go across and where I'm going to have that land. So where within my file structure am I going to be able to actually put my documents or take documents from. So you'll notice here we have all of our currently bridged projects, but if I look at what is outgoing and I click here, this is going to be all of the information on what we currently have going for all of these different files. If I look at this, this particular option here that is connected to my other sandbox project and I select on this, I can open it and see exactly what files and folders are currently being shared between these two projects. So the design models and the architectural team folders from Big Box Food Mart are currently being routed to my sandbox project. So when these get updated, so does this. Moving back into Bridge, I can also go into the incoming option. This is going to do the exact opposite. So I'm able to actually go through and see what exactly is coming through from another project. In this case, on Scott's ABC Pro 2024, I am currently receiving updates from his architectural team folder. So all of those things are going to keep working in conjunction as we're moving forward and updating things as we go here. You'll see this one is going to say pending until it is finally completed. But if I do go and click on my sandbox project here, we can go and it's going to say that we have some automations. To also evaluate those, if I go back to my outgoing, let me open up this one again. It's going to route me directly to that folder. And we actually have another option for getting involved into the bridge option. So I'm going to kind of run with my PDF files or my PDF plans folder here. And using my three dots, I usually stress to everybody how important these three dots are. I am able to actually go ahead and share this folder here. And at this point, I'm going to be able to select anybody with a link, anybody who's on my project, but I'm going to say another project altogether. And at this point, I'm going to be able to say automatically sync updates to target project. Anytime this one gets updated, so will my new one. And then as we move forward, we can also turn on and off these automations. So if you're going through a period where your company is kind of sharing some private information, we can pause these automations as well. I'm going to call this one a sample bridge, and I'm going to select a target project. I'm going to stick with my sandbox, and it's now going to ask me to go through and select the folder specifically from my sandbox in which this one's going to go. So all of my PDF plans are going to start linking with that one, and they're going to end up in my test folder. And I now have an automation between the two of those. So we'll be able to see if I enter into my outgoing again, I now have sample bridge shared with this exact PDF plans one being included here. So a lot of really good options for making sure that your projects are staying together and everybody is able to actually link their information back and forth, whether that's through reviews and making sure that you're on latest and greatest, transmittals to make sure that everybody's actually up to date, receiving notifications and information, or your bridge function, which is going to work in the background of your systems to make sure that all of that information is free flowing. Those three items are going to help increase the way that you have a centralized source of data and that single source of truth through the ACC platform. I'll go ahead and pass this one back off to Scott and Sarah so that we can wrap this up with a Q&A if anybody has any questions and go from there.
All right, thank you, Shane. So with that, we can open this up to any questions, or if I don't see for some reason I don't see the question pane, so I can't read any of them. So I don't know if anyone that can see the questions can maybe ask them, and I could maybe provide some information there.
I was Melissa. Melissa, are you answering some of these questions?
I did answer some of them.
Okay.
Or if there's a way to let me see the question list, which I cannot.
Okay, let me see if I can. 1 second.
Or if Melissa could.
All right, Scott, let me know if that did it.
Some questions now, I think. Let's see if I can get this big enough that I can actually read them. There we go. So I guess first question, is there a simple guide to the big giant cluster projects under the ACC? That's basically when you go to the admin console, you can see all of the projects that are within your own organization, or as I mentioned before, when you go to that home page, you can actually filter that page so that it shows just the list of projects from your account only. So there's ways to filter that view. So that's how you go ahead and see that. So another question, in adding users, does Docs only use email or does it use Active Directory too? No, it only uses Autodesk accounts. So you have to have an Autodesk ID, and then you invite those users into the project that way. And there's another question, do you have a way to automate the selection of sheets that get published out of Revit? So automate, no, in Revit, you have to create a sheet set, and in that sheet set, you select what 3D views and which 2D views will be published if that Revit file is ever put into the Docs environment. So that's all controlled within Revit itself. So a Revit user has to specifically select which 3D views, which 2D views will be visible if the file is ever put into the environment, and you have to make sure that it's selected and saved with the file, right? That's the only way to control that. And another question, how do versions get released? So basically, if you have permissions to upload a file and edit in that folder, then every time you put a file up there, it has to have exactly the same name, And if it has the same name, it automatically creates a different version. And that's how that's done. There's no other control of that. So a user must have upload or edit permissions or upload permissions. If they have that level of permission, then a new version gets created. If you don't have those permissions, you can't upload files, of course, right? And the key is it has to be the same name. You put the same name up there twice, it becomes version 1, version 2, version 3. If the file has a unique name, every time you upload it, it will always be version 1. So just be aware of that. Although with a comparison tool, you can pick different files with different names. So if the same file had 2 different names, you can still actually compare them against each other. It's not the way I would do it, but you can do it if you want that. So is there a quantity restriction for how many reviewers can review in parallel? There is a limit. It's pretty high. It's like 10 or 7. I think it might be 7, but I could be wrong for simultaneous reviews of a file. But honestly, I'm not sure if I'd have multiple reviewers. I'd probably have different steps, but if you want to have multiple reviewers per steps, you could do that. I know that there's a maximum number of steps is 7, I believe, meaning review steps in there, I think that's the limit there. But I'm fairly certain that the number of reviewers is either 7 or 10. I don't know what the exact limit is there, but it's definitely not more than 10, and it could be as low as 7. And so yeah, someone's asking, how does this compare against Bentley ProjectWise? Well, there is no comparison. This isn't really a document management system. Bentley ProjectWise, although I think it can be web-based now too, is a full project document management system with metadata and all these other things like that. This is not a ProjectWise replacement. This is a project management solution and collaboration tool with document management functions that are similar to a full document management system, but not as a full replacement for one. But so it's hard to really compare it against ProjectWise because it's like apples to oranges there. And let's see what else here. We only have like a minute here, if that. Oh yeah, so as a last question I could do here, can someone without a subscription to Docs but has an Autodesk account participate in the workflow? No. Anyone who needs to work in this environment must have an Autodesk Docs subscription. If you don't have a subscription, you cannot see the files, you cannot participate, period. Okay, you have to have a license of at least Autodesk Docs. And as I mentioned earlier, Autodesk Docs can be bought by itself as just an Autodesk Docs subscription. If you have an AEC collection, the AEC collection entitlement includes Autodesk Docs. But again, anyone participating must have a subscription somehow, either by purchasing Docs by itself or getting it through the AEC collection, or if you have Collaborate Pro, Autodesk Build, of course you have access to it. So that's all that we have time